At just 9 years old, Lena Carter had already learned how to change adult diapers. Her grandmother, Edith, who was slipping into deep dementia, had wandered into a neighbor's yard again and soiled herself in the garden. Lena brought her back inside, gently humming the lullaby Edith always seemed to respond to. "Where's Mommy?" Edith asked, her voice confused, her eyes cloudy. "She's at work, Grandma," Lena lied, helping her sit down. In reality, Lena's mother, Janet, was locked inside her bedroom, likely coming down from whatever she'd injected the night before. Lena had lost count of how many nights were like this. Edith was 73 years older than Lena, but Lena felt more like the adult between them. She was the one who gave Grandma her pills, unplugged the stove, and sang softly when the older woman cried out for her long-dead mother. "Where are you watching from today? Kindly hit like, comment and subscribe to this channel for more." Lena had grown used to hiding the knives and covering the stove knobs with duct tape. "I'm fine," she would whisper to herself whenever the shadows outside stretched long and scary. At school she said nothing. No one knew her shoes were too tight or that she hadn't had a proper meal in days. By the time Lena turned 12, she was stealing food just to survive. One night she came home with a jar of peanut butter hidden under her jacket. She placed it on the kitchen counter with a small, proud smile. Janet saw it and exploded. "You think you're better than me?" Janet screamed, grabbing Lena by the hair and slamming her head into the counter. "Stealing like some little criminal while I'm out here doing what I can to keep us fed." Lena's vision blurred with tears. "I just wanted us to eat," she whispered. The kitchen spun around Lena. She touched her forehead and felt a bump already forming. Her stomach twisted, not from the pain but from fear. But she didn't cry. She had learned not to. Janet was panting, her face wild. "Get out. I don't need a thief for a daughter." Lena's eyes darted toward the living room, where Edith sat on the couch humming to herself, completely unaware of what had just happened. "I can't leave Grandma," Lena said, voice trembling. Janet didn't respond. She just stormed back into her room, slamming the door. Lena stood still for a moment, then quietly moved to the basement. She stayed there that night, curled under an old blanket, waiting for the storm to pass. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Lena had learned the signs of her mother's bipolar swings. And that night something worse happened. Around 2 a.m. she heard screaming from the kitchen. Rushing upstairs, she saw a nightmare unfolding. Janet was tying Edith to a chair with extension cords, shouting about government spies and radio signals in her teeth. "Mom, stop!" Lena cried, running to her grandmother. "She's been sending messages through her dentures," Janet said, eyes wide and wild. "I heard it. I know it." Edith sobbed like a child. "I want my husband," she whispered. "Where is he?" "He's gone, Grandma," Lena said, her hands shaking as she dialed 911. At just 12 years old, Lena sat in a cold police station lobby at 3 a.m. A woman with kind eyes and a soft voice came to sit beside her. "I'm Miss Taylor, a social worker," she said gently. "Can you tell me about your home?" Lena took a deep breath. "My mom has episodes," she said quietly. "She uses drugs. I've been taking care of Grandma for years. I even sign her checks to pay the bills." Miss Taylor blinked but didn't interrupt. "She almost hurt Grandma tonight," Lena whispered. "I didn't know what else to do." Miss Taylor put a warm hand on hers. "You did the right thing." That night, Edith was moved to a safe memory care home. And Lena entered emergency foster care. Lena's first foster home wasn't bad, but it wasn't a home either. The couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hart, were polite and kept her fed, but they made it clear she was only staying until someone else took her in. "You'll have your own room," Mrs. Hart had said on the first day. "But don't get too comfortable." They didn't yell, and they let her visit Grandma every Sunday, which was all Lena cared about. At the memory care facility, Edith would sometimes smile and call her Maggie, her sister's name from long ago. Lena didn't mind. She just held her hand and listened to her talk about the past. It was quiet, but it was lonely. 6 months later, things changed. A new couple came to the facility one Sunday and introduced themselves as the Millers. "We're thinking about fostering you," said Karen Miller, a woman with warm eyes and a gentle smile. Her husband, Marcus, stood beside her, tall and calm. "They specialize in kids who are caregivers," the staff explained. Lena didn't say much at first. She didn't trust easily. But when Marcus found her hiding a granola bar under her pillow the first night and just said, "You're safe here. You don't need to do that anymore," something inside her cracked. She cried for the first time in over a year. Karen and Marcus never asked her to be perfect. When she woke up at 2 a.m. to check the locks or had panic attacks after loud noises, they didn't get angry. They just sat with her and waited for her breathing to slow. "You've been through a lot," Karen would say softly, handing her a cup of tea. They taught her how to shop without guilt, how to sleep without fear, how to study without pressure. They never pushed, just waited patiently as she slowly began to trust again. By the time Lena turned 15, they officially adopted her. The adoption day was surprisingly simple. No balloons or big celebration, just a judge in a small courtroom and a few signatures. Her biological mother, Janet, didn't even show up. She had been offered $100 to sign the papers and took it without asking a single question about her daughter's well-being. She didn't want to come, the lawyer told Karen with a shrug. Said she had better things to do. Lena sat quietly beside her new parents. Marcus held her hand. Karen wiped her tears. And for the first time, Lena realized something she had never truly felt before. She was wanted. At 17, Lena had her own bank account, a weekend job at a bookstore and about $2,000 in savings. She volunteered at Edith's memory care facility 3 times a week. Though her grandmother rarely remembered her name, she still lit up every time Lena entered the room. "You remind me of someone," Edith would whisper. "Maybe your sister?" Lena would smile, holding her hand. "Maybe," Edith would nod. "She always sang me lullabies when I was scared." Lena never corrected her. She just sang. Everything felt calm, until 6 months ago when Lena saw someone standing outside her school gate after classes ended. It was Janet. Janet looked thinner than Lena remembered. Her face was hollow, her clothes worn, but her eyes were sharp. Too sharp. Lena stopped a few feet away. "What do you want?" Janet crossed her arms. "You owe me." Lena blinked, stunned. "Excuse me. You took everything from me," Janet said, voice flat. "My home. My mother. My life." Lena clenched her fists. "I was 12. You told me to get out. Remember that." Janet didn't flinch. "I want a second chance." But Lena had grown. She didn't shake. She didn't cry. She simply said, "No," and walked away. That evening, Lena returned home from the care facility feeling unsettled. As she stepped inside, Karen met her at the door with a strange expression. "There's someone here to see you," she said carefully. Lena's stomach dropped. She walked into the living room and froze. Janet sat on the couch with a cup of tea, and right beside her, looking confused in her care facility uniform, was Grandma Edith. Lena's heart skipped. "What is she doing here?" she whispered. Janet smiled. "Just a little family visit. I checked her out for the day. I am her daughter after all." Karen's hand gripped Lena's shoulder tightly. Lena's eyes locked onto Grandma's. "Are you okay, Grandma?" Edith blinked slowly. "Where is my purse?" "It's in your lap," Lena whispered. Janet let out a fake laugh. "She just needs some air, that's all. And I thought maybe you'd let us stay here. Just for a bit." For her. Lena felt the old rage stir inside her. "You don't belong here." Janet's grip tightened on Grandma's shoulders. "Don't be dramatic," she snapped. From the corner of her eye, Lena saw Marcus appear behind them, already dialing his phone. Karen's voice was calm but firm. "Let's all sit down and talk this through." Janet's expression twisted. "I don't need permission to visit my own mother." Lena's phone buzzed. Emma had responded to her emergency text. 911. She took Grandma. Marcus whispered into his phone, his face tense. Meanwhile, Grandma began to fidget with her bracelet, clearly agitated. Janet stood up abruptly. "We'll just go then." Lena noticed Janet already had her car keys in hand. "She planned this," she whispered to Karen. "She's been watching us." Janet tugged Grandma toward the door, but Marcus stepped in her way. "Move," Janet growled. "No," he replied simply. Just then Lena's phone buzzed again. This time it was Emma's mom, who worked at the memory care facility. "She's been signing your grandma out as an authorized visitor. The staff thought you knew." Lena's chest tightened. "She's been visiting Grandma without telling me," she whispered. She looked at the bracelet still dangling from Edith's wrist. The tag that held her identity, her care instructions, her safety. Janet was using it like a backstage pass. Lena's phone pinged again, a photo from Emma. It showed the visitor log from the facility. Janet's name had been signed in at least 8 times in the past 3 weeks. Each time marked, daughter and caregiver. Caregiver. Lena muttered. She hasn't cared for anyone in years. Just then Grandma's eyes met Lena's. Sister? She asked, her voice fragile. Can we go home now? Lena's heart broke. Edith always called her sister when she was feeling safe. But now her face was pale with fear. Janet's smile faded as she pulled Grandma closer. Karen tried to de-escalate. Janet, I understand you want time with your mother. But Edith listed Lena as her emergency contact just last month. Janet's eyes gleamed. Call the facility if you don't believe me. Karen looked confused. How was she even allowed to do this? Lena's phone vibrated. Another notification from an unknown number. When she opened it, she saw voicemails, brief and silent, each one matching the same days Janet had visited the facility. She wasn't just showing up. She was checking to see if Lena knew. Janet had been testing her. Janet crouched down beside Edith, her voice sweet and fake. They took you away from me, but I found you again, didn't I, Mommy? Edith blinked, confused. Marcus subtly shifted his body, still blocking the exit. Karen stepped aside to take a call. Her expression went cold. She hung up and whispered to Lena, that was the school principal. Janet's been outside your school, talking to students. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Janet wasn't just playing games anymore. She was trying to infect Lena's life again, one crack at a time. Moments later, the facility's director, Ms. Patel, arrived. Her face was unreadable. Janet has visitation rights, she explained quietly. She's listed as next of kin. Legally, we can't restrict her unless there's a court order. Lena's heart sank. But she signed away her rights to me. She only lost custody of you, Ms. Patel clarified. No one ever filed for guardianship over Edith. Karen's jaw clenched. We'll fix that. But Lena was already thinking ahead. If Janet had been allowed in for weeks, what else had she done? Her stomach twisted at the thought. Lena checked her phone again. Emma had sent another update. A staff photo showing Janet's signature next to notes like, brought flowers, and patient calm during visit. And that's when Lena saw the chip. Hanging from Janet's keychain was a sobriety token. 1 month clean. It made Lena feel sick. Janet always fooled people when she was manic. The flowers. The fake stability. It was all part of the same act. She's doing it again, Lena whispered. She's building trust to take more. And Grandma was the prize. That night Lena couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed again. Rosario, a nurse from the care facility. I don't trust her, the message read. She asked too many questions. Attached was another tip. Check Tuesday's security footage at 3:47 p.m. Lena forwarded the message to Karen, her fingers trembling. She's hiding something, Lena told Marcus at breakfast. Marcus nodded. Then we find it. But we don't stoop to her level. We do it the right way. Lena looked at him, deeply grateful. No matter how messy things got, she wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, Karen found the legal guardianship papers in her filing cabinet. They were ready to challenge Janet's access, but Janet had already come prepared. I never lost rights to my mother, Janet said, pointing at Lena. Just to her. Karen froze. It was technically true. Edith's custody had never been decided in court. We'll talk to our lawyer, Karen said calmly. This isn't over. But Janet's confidence had returned. She knew the loophole and she was ready to exploit it. Lena stared at her birth mother and thought she came here to win. Not to reconnect. To win. Later that day, Lena sat beside Edith at the facility. The older woman was confused again, pulling at her sleeves and whispering nonsense. You okay, Grandma? Sister, Edith murmured. There's something wrong with my shoes. Lena glanced down. Her shoes were fine. It was another sign of agitation. Another clue Janet's visits were doing more harm than good. Karen and Marcus went over every page. As they read, Marcus shook his head. She's not trying to reconnect. She's trying to take control. Karen added softly, and we're going to stop her. Lena looked around the table and felt something she hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The temptation to dig deeper into Janet's medical records was strong. Lena had access during her volunteer shifts. She hasn't been taking her meds, Lena whispered to Emma one evening. You're sure? Emma asked. She's in a manic phase. I've seen it too many times. Lena hovered over the login screen in the facility's nurses' station. She could pull Janet's records in seconds. But she didn't. We'll do this the right way, she said firmly, closing the laptop. Emma nodded. That's what makes you better than her. A few days later things came to a head. Janet showed up at the facility again, yelling at staff when they delayed her visit with Edith. Her behavior drew a small crowd of concerned families and aides. You're keeping me from my own mother, she shouted. Lena arrived just in time to see Janet throw a clipboard across the hallway. She's getting worse, Rosario whispered. Even other residents are starting to complain. One of the social workers approached Lena. We're documenting everything, she said quietly. Every outburst, every threat. Lena exhaled. Good. We'll need it. Janet cornered Lena later that day near the garden. Let's make a deal, she whispered. You give me joint custody of Grandma, and I'll leave you and your fake little family alone. Lena stepped back. Is that a threat? Janet smiled, but there was no warmth in her eyes. Just a warning. I know where Marcus works. I know Karen's maiden name. You're not as protected as you think. Lena didn't flinch. You've already lost. You just don't know it yet. Janet's smile twitched, her confidence cracking at the edges. That weekend, Rosario called Lena aside during her volunteer shift. She's been taking things, Rosario said. And she's left things too. They found bank statements hidden in old magazines, Edith's bank statements. Over $15,000 had been withdrawn in just 3 weeks. Lena felt like the floor had dropped out beneath her. She stole from Grandma, she whispered. The worst part. Janet had managed to become an authorized user on Edith's account. The bank had signature cards. And footage later showed Janet guiding Edith's hand. Grandma had no idea what she was signing. Rosario showed Lena more logs. She only signs your grandma out when you're in school. It's a pattern. Lena's fingers tightened around the paper. She never wanted reconciliation, she said bitterly. She wanted access. To Grandma. To her money. Karen and Marcus gathered all the files into a binder. We're going to court, Karen said. And this time we'll make sure there are no loopholes. Lena nodded. We need to protect her. All the way. They weren't just fighting for Grandma's safety. They were fighting for justice. Emma returned that night with flash drives and backup files. This is everything, she said, dropping them on the table. Hard copies. Cloud folders. USBs. Color-coded tabs. You didn't have to do all this, Lena said, amazed. Emma grinned. You saved your grandma. Let us help save you. Karen and Marcus sat across the table, flipping through records, dates, photos. We're ready, Marcus said. Let her come. We'll be waiting. And for the first time in a long time, Lena believed they could win. The next day, Lena walked into the facility with her head held high. She carried the evidence folder tucked under her arm and wore a quiet determination on her face. Inside the staff lounge, Rosario pulled her aside. More people are starting to see her true colors, she whispered. Even some of the board members are asking questions. That afternoon, Lena met with the bank manager who had reviewed the surveillance footage. His expression was serious. This qualifies as elder financial abuse, he said. We've frozen the account. We'll be reporting this to Adult Protective Services. Lena felt her knees wobble, but she stood tall. Finally, someone was listening. Janet returned to the facility that same day, walking in like she owned the place. But this time something was different. The receptionist stood up. Miss Chin, you'll need to wait here. We have new visitation policies in place. What? Janet's voice rose. I'm her daughter. A security officer stepped into view from the hallway. We've been advised to supervise all visits until further notice. Janet's smile cracked. This is harassment. But no one moved. The facility was finally pushing back. Lena watched from a distance as Janet was escorted to a private room. The walls were closing in on her. That evening, during dinner at home, Karen received a call from Diane, Janet's former addiction sponsor. She's off her bipolar meds again, Diane said quietly. And she's been bouncing between relatives. She's unstable and getting worse. Karen looked at Lena, concern on her face. We're doing everything we can, Karen said after hanging up. Lena nodded. Then we keep going. Marcus pulled out his laptop. The lawyer says we have enough for a permanent restraining order and a financial protection order. The documents will be ready by next week. The end was near, but they had to stay sharp. 2 days later, Janet crossed another line. She showed up at Lena's school with balloons and a birthday cake, even though Lena's birthday was months away. From the library window, Lena watched as security approached Janet's car. Her phone buzzed. It was a photo, Janet holding the cake in the school parking lot, captioned, "Just a mother trying to see her daughter." Lena's school went into soft lockdown. Teachers locked doors. The police were called. Janet live-streamed her rant from her phone. The comments flooded in. Some sympathetic, some confused. Most didn't know the full story. But Lena did. That night, Lena sat in the school cafeteria long after everyone else had left. Her classmates had seen Janet's live stream. He heard the whispers, saw the glances. So she opened her class group chat and typed. She shared the truth. The abuse, the neglect, the forged documents, the theft. She attached screenshots, bank records, the visitor logs. Then she hit send. For a moment, nothing. Then, ping, ping, ping. One by one, messages rolled in. "I'm so sorry. I believe you. My uncle did something similar to my family." Lena wasn't alone anymore. The emergency board meeting at the care facility was packed. Lena sat between Karen and Marcus. Behind them sat Emma's family, Rosario, and other facility families who had witnessed Janet's behavior. Janet entered flanked by 2 unfamiliar faces, likely people she had convinced to support her. The facility's lawyer began the meeting. "We've reviewed all the documentation. Financial exploitation. Emotional abuse. Security breaches. We are pursuing a no-contact order." Janet's face turned pale as she read the legal papers served to her. She tried to interrupt, but her voice cracked under the weight of the evidence. The investigator from Adult Protective Services gave Janet 2 choices. "Either walk away and give up any claims to your mother," she said, "or we move forward with criminal charges." Lena watched as Janet tried one last card. "If you do this, I'll hurt myself," she threatened, her voice trembling. The social worker didn't blink. "A crisis team has already been notified." Minutes later, professionals arrived and escorted Janet for psychiatric evaluation. Her threats couldn't harm Lena anymore. Not when the system finally worked. Janet's mask had finally shattered beyond repair. 3 weeks later, Janet accepted a plea deal. She received 2 years of probation, was required to undergo mental health treatment, and was banned from all contact with Edith, Lena, or the Millers. Adult Protective Services finalized a financial protection order. Karen, Marcus, and Lena became co-trustees of Edith's trust. Every cent would now be accounted for. The bank flagged Janet's name for future fraud alerts. She moved out of state. But her paper trail would follow her wherever she went. On Edith's 90th birthday, the care facility threw a small party. The activity room filled with residents, staff, and families who had become part of Lena's circle. Emma helped serve cake. Marcus snapped photos. Karen chatted with Rosario near the window. Edith sat in her favorite chair, tapping her foot to the jazz music playing softly from a speaker. Lena held her hand. "Sister," Edith said, smiling. "Thank you for coming. Remember to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to this channel for more of this."